and welcome again. This is Dr. Carmeli, obviously, and I just wanted to make a brief video that will help us go through how we actually came up with all the disorders we're going to be learning about for the rest of the quarter. Like, I already put the question up, are these labels ethical, right? Um, if you know of a loved one or you've been diagnosed yourself, then you know that it might be helpful, right, to your providers in making your life decisions to know what you're actually diagnosed with. But there's also stigma as well. It's much better than 10, 20, 30 years ago. But there is a stigma. So continue to discuss that as we think about how these came about. As the text noted, in America, we use the DSM-5, and in the rest of the world, they use the ICD, the International Classification of Diseases, and they incorporate mental health with other physical disorders in that case. So, something I learned, I hadn't heard of it in a long time, was the Diagnostic Classification of Mental Health and Developmental Disorders of Infancy and Early Childhood, revised, is out there. We don't really use that. You'll see right there, I have an app on my phone for the DSM. When I pop it up, it comes with all the major areas. So when your text was talking about classification and the big categories, it was talking about that. Right? We have one for neurocognitive disorders, substance abuse disorders, sexual dysfunctions, depressive disorders. So you start with that big classification, and then you can go in. This is one of the ones I use a lot. Neurodevelopmental disorders, intellectual disabilities, communication disorders, autism, right? We'll talk about that. I'm actually, because it's kind of hard for you to see, I will copy a link onto our webpage with all the classification I'm going to talk about within autism. I'll leave it open for me though, so we can talk. So we want to keep aware that all of the diagnoses were developed over time through research by comparing a normative group to those identified with those symptoms. And when we look at that, we have inter-rater reliability again, that we talked about last time, and retest reliability for those criteria, validity, clinical utility too. So let's start with test versus retest. You've got to, just like with measures based on these diagnoses, you've got to be able to say that if I test somebody now and I test them 5 days from now, they're going to have the same diagnosis. Inter-rater reliability. I hand this diagnostic manual to, multiple clinicians. They should be able to follow this and come up with the same diagnosis. Clinical utility. I'm not doing this. Like, I probably diagnose ADHD or autism, a few times a month. I'm not doing this to for any other purpose than to get them help in school, help in the home, establish a treatment plan based on that information. So when we look at the clinically derived classifications, those characteristics are pulled together. For example, I like thinking about when we think of schizophrenia, we can look at that as a set of diagnostic criteria for that disorder, right? So we have psychosis that includes altered hearing, vision, right? We're having hallucinations or delusions, like you think you're you have special powers, or that you're better than other people, or that you're being persecuted, numerous things. Outside of that, though, when we look at those broad classifications, we also have schizoaffective, schizophreniform disorder, schizoid, formerly known as schizotypal disorder, and autism. We're now learning, due to all this research, and I'll link a thing about autism, there may be a genetic link to all the above, right? Especially when you think about the kid with autism is going to be odd in some similar ways to the kid that will end up with psychosis, right? That there's some similarities. The average onset when we talk about schizophrenia, though, for a break is 18. So they'll just seem a little odd. With autism, they've had all these other symptoms that have kept them separate, that are similar but not identical, right? But we know there's so many similarities. Schizophreniform and schizoid and schizotypal, those are more personality-based. So they don't even have the full symptoms. It's deeper. It's part of their personality. So, and, sorry about that. We will charge in a second. I do want to get this to you today, though. So we want to look at, okay, could all of those in the future be under a certain umbrella? The other one was categorical approach, where you're looking at not degree or an umbrella, but you're looking at a kind rather than a degree, right? The qualitative. And so you might look at all mood disorders together, right? That's a type. They're all related to mood. One thing I did want to mention that the textbook does not mention is that everything is now more about functioning. So you're going to see that every diagnosis that you can give now, you have to justify based on functioning. With the new DSM-5 that came out starting in 2015, you have to say, okay, I can't just say you have depression. Your depression has to keep you from going to work this many days a month. It has to be impairing your sex life. It has to be impacting your eating and sleeping. We just don't go saying you're depressed, right? Part of that is us getting even more quantitative about our diagnosis and joining the rest of the sciences. And to be honest, people are not going to pay us to indefinitely treat something that they don't see changing, right? There are people with funds on each coast that will go into psychodynamic treatment that can last without measuring these things. Most insurance companies want to know after visit 21 what's been going on. And in that initial interview, they'll want to say, hey, what was our level of functioning? What are we working on in your treatment plan? Your treatment plan should tie right to functioning. We're going to get you to school. This clinician has been in cars getting kids to school that are in school refusal or have social anxiety the last 3 months. So we want to look at dimensions as well. So I'm going to link up the autism dimensions, but you will see that there's not only a high functioning and low functioning based on IQ. 80 or above is high functioning, 80 or below is low functioning, but you can specify due to another medical condition, and then there's 3 different categories. Just to give you an example, and we'll get more into this as we go into autism, but needing a lot of assistance, like and needing a great amount of assistance, needing, let me make sure I'm giving you this exactly right. And like I said, I'm going to put this up. So, So, requiring very substantial support is level 3. Requiring substantial support is level 2. Requiring some support is level 1. And it's based both on social communication and restrictive repetitive behaviors. I don't see, speaking of this functioning, a lot of my higher functioning kiddos being at the level 3, but many of them still need a lot of support, and can be at level 2. I am going to put some information about the BASC, and it is a behavior and assessment for children that goes over the internalizing and externalizing factors that you guys had in chart 5.1. So I think you're going to like that. And once again, it's comparing kids to normative groups, kids that don't have any of those, identifying symptoms to kids that do. And you can see, okay, where does the child you're assessing fall on that? And it helps. So I think the BASC actually only looks at kids that have not. You're compared to the normative sample. Thank you, and I hope this helps, and we will see you soon.